So hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Make sure you hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, get into the comments. I will get back to you. If you listen on the audio only platform, thank you as always. Big thanks as well to NordVPN for sponsoring the podcast. If you want a discount offer on your NordVPN plan to keep you safe while browsing on public Wi-Fi, hit the link in the podcast description box. Nottingham Forest, the visitors to St James's Park on Sunday, a game which Newcastle United will be looking to win to add to that fantastic victory in the Champions League against Union SG over in Belgium. It's a game that we expect them to win. Nottingham Forest are not in a good way at all and really struggling to get that first win as Forest boss. So there's a real opportunity here for Newcastle United to kickstart their domestic campaign. Of course, they've only got one win. You can go back onto the YouTube channel, onto the podcast channel, watch the view from the opposition to get an insight into Forest, as well as the match preview with myself and John Gibson. But we're here today, a bit of an additional episode because it's been Eddie Howe's press conference, and of course it's the usual stuff, reflecting on what's gone, previewing what's to come, thoughts about Forest, etc, etc. But there were two big bits of news, one on Jacob Ramsey and one on Yoane Wissa. Positive on Jacob Ramsey, of course, he got injured against Leeds. Sean Longstaff with a bit of a naughty challenge, and it was thought he'd be out until after the international break, which was a huge blow because he offers something different to the midfield. More than anything, it's just the depth that Newcastle United were lacking with that injury. But Eddie Howe has said there's a chance he could be involved on Sunday, which is a big boost to Newcastle United because, like I say, he's a very special player. He, of course, wants to prove himself. Big money signing, big decision to leave his boyhood club, and he would have been devastated as anyone else to be ruled out for the amount of time he has done. So to be back ahead of schedule is massive for Newcastle United. So really good news that. The bad news is on Yoane Wissa, and this is just something you could not make up, you could not write, but at the same time it also feels very Newcastle United's luck, which isn't anyone's fault, it's just Newcastle United's bad luck. They sign a player who has a near perfect fitness record, doesn't get injured. That was one of the huge pluses alongside his goal scoring ability. He does not get injured. Hasn't even kicked the ball for Newcastle United. 50 odd million pounds, hasn't pulled on the black and white shirt on the pitch. Unbelievable. We were told earmark Brighton in the first Premier League game after the international break for his return. Brilliant. See him on the bench, come on for half an hour, maybe get a goal, all that. Positive. And then today, Eddie Howe says that actually he's got to see a specialist and he's going to be out and miss potentially 4 or 5 extra games. So we're now looking at that West Ham game, which is a lot further away than we'd hoped to see Yoane Wissa. It's devastating, really, because he is a good player. He, of course, wearing that number 9 shirt, he, like Ramsey, wants to prove his worth after such a big spend to get him here. And it's probably his last big move in the game of football. He's 29 years of age, so this is really the move for him. And he's not going to get as much time as he'd hoped, as he'd wanted. Of course, he would have wanted to start straight away. Of course, he didn't really have a pre-season with Brentford because he was kind of on strike. I mean, he wasn't, but he was sort of. Goes to Congo, picks up that injury with his country, and here we are. What is it going to be? 8 weeks out on the physio's table. And then you've got to take into consideration that actually, even though he'll be fit, will he be match fit? And that's the key. It's going to take him a wee while to get up to scratch. He's probably going to have 10 games, if that, before he then heads on to international duty and the African Cup of Nations with his country, the Dominican Republic of Congo. And I suppose that's where the big question is. Does Yoane Wissa really need to reconsider what he does between mid-December and mid-January? That's when the African Cup of Nations runs. Is there a chance that he actually could say, sorry, I'm not going to go and play? For what it's worth, I don't think he will do. I think this is maybe his last big international competition. Congo do not qualify for the World Cup. They haven't, from memory or from research, since 1974. They just don't qualify for the World Cup. So this is really kind of the big international tournament. They won it back in 2016. They'll not win it this time around, but given his age, he won't want to miss a tournament of this side. Comes round every 2 years, so he'll be 31, 32 next time it comes around. This could be his last big chance on the big stage for his country. On the other hand, he's not chasing any records. He's got 8 goals for Congo. Top scorer's got 22, so it's not like he's trying to chase something down. It's just about whether he wants to play for his country, and of course he does. Of course you want to represent your country, But at the same time, like I said, last big move of your domestic career, wearing the number 9 shirt. I mean, is there a chance he could say, I don't want to go? I would certainly hope it's a question within his mind. I don't think Newcastle United will force that question at all. I think they'll leave it up to Yoane Wissa. But look, if he goes there and he's not fully fit, his body's not match fit, he could risk a recurrence of that injury which has kept him out so far. So hopefully, it is something he considers. If he goes, I don't think there'll be any negativity towards that decision. If he stays, which would be a big call, Newcastle United fans would welcome that, because December's a massive period. The calendar is full of games. It's like the biggest run of games of the entire season, and he's going to potentially be missing from, I think it's the 16th of December, and if they get all the way to the final, till the 18th of December. So that's a long time to be missing when you haven't actually played much football at all for your domestic club. Big decision. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on that. Would you like to see Yoane Wissa refuse to play for Congo during the African Cup of Nations and get himself in better shape, better fitness, help Newcastle United out during the busiest time of this season? But it is a massive blow to be losing him for more than we initially had hoped. Newcastle United have got through it to a certain degree. Only 6 points on the board though ahead of this game against Nottingham Forest. Only, I think it's 3-4 goals scored in the Premier League. So I say they've got through it. They kind of limped through it, haven't they? Of course, what the ideal scenario would have been Yoane Wissa from the start, to allow Nick Voldemort to bed in, maybe see them in a partnership where Voldemort plays as a number 10, Yoane Wissa as the last man. That's for me the ideal thing, and hopefully we will see that as the months go on. But this is the other thing, those two are going to take a little bit of time to get used to one another. The team's going to have to get used to playing with Wissa, who's a totally different player to Voldemort. And how long will that take? At least 3 or 4 games, at least a few weeks, and then just when they're up to scratch, off he jumps on a plane and goes off to the African Cup of Nations. That is not ideal whatsoever. And that, it's not that it doesn't sit well, because again, if he decides to go, I'm not going to look upon it negatively. Of course, you want to represent your country, but it's a big issue for Newcastle United, because really, you look at it, they're going to go the first half of this season with one senior striker. Now look, Willa has really come on leaps and bounds, but is he Yoane Wissa? Is he a Premier League proven striker? Not at all. And Nick Voldemort has started it well, but can he keep it going? That's going to be the big question. And actually, I think it would be a little bit easier to keep this goal scoring form going if there was A, competition from a senior striker, and B, the knowledge that actually you're going to get rotated. You're not going to have to play every single game, because Eddie Howe has options where he doesn't really. He's got Willa, Anthony Gordon through the middle. You want Yoane Wissa because he's got that pedigree, he's got that proven experience in the Premier League. So it is far from ideal. And even when he comes back, if he comes back for that West Ham game, straight away you're checking the calendar, you're saying, well, he's only going to be here 10 games, and it's going to take at least 5 of them to get up to scratch to where he's hopefully at his best. But look, I don't think he's going to refuse to go to the African Cup of Nations at all. But a question to be answered. Let me know in the comments. What are you now feeling about the Nottingham Forest game? Now, we did record the view from the opposition prior to their defeat in the Europa League, where the Nottingham Forest fans actually taunted Big Ange, saying you're going to get sacked in the morning. And even before that game, we said on the view from the opposition, Matt Davies from Forest Focus, that it felt like a big game, but he wasn't under much pressure. He's the owner's manager because of kind of the Greek link, and yes, he needs a win, but if he doesn't get a win, he's not going to go anywhere. 24 hours later after recording that, things might be a little bit different, to be honest. I've spoken to Matt. He says that they were awful in the Europa League, and actually maybe pressure is rising ever so slightly. And look, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. This will probably going to come back and bite me in the behind. I really dislike Ange. Really dislike him. I think the fact that they put him in place ahead of Nuno is an utterly bizarre decision. I really don't understand it at all. Don't see how his football works for a team like Nottingham Forest, who are quite conservative. Big adaptation to the way Ange plays. Don't think it worked at Spurs at all. I think he's arrogant. I think he lives on the fact that he does win trophies, but actually in the league, not very good. But we don't care. That's not our problem. What is our problem, what is our attention, is that we need to make sure we take advantage of the situation that Nottingham Forest find themselves in. A team in transition from one conservative style to a more attacking style, a manager who's got pressure on him, fans who are clearly divided and actually, by the sounds of it and what you read, are more weighted against Big Ange than they are towards him. So that's advantage for Newcastle United right there to take it. They're at home. They're on a wave of positivity after beating Union Saint-Gilles in the Premier League. Voldemort is scoring for fun. You could argue Tonali looking his best. Okay, they've suffered some blows. Wissa, Livramento. Positive the Ramsey's back. Positive that Fabian Schär is back as well after the concussion. Positive that actually everyone came through that game against Union SG. So this is a big opportunity for Newcastle United to get their second win. Another win at home, which is going to be important as well, because it's not been the fortress that we've come to love and expect from Newcastle United at St James's Park. So big game on Sunday. Big opportunity to go into that international break feeling really happy about things. I'm backing them to do so. I actually think we'll win quite comfortably. I've gone for 4-1. You can go back into the view from the opposition. You go back into the match preview and find out kind of in depth why I think that. But yeah, look, Newcastle United, they're going to win on Sunday. They kind of ought to. Yeah, I expect them to. And everyone will be happy in this 2-week break, come back facing Brighton and hopefully kickstart their season. But yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts on Yoane Wissa. Should he refuse to go to the African Cup of Nations? Is that what you would like to see? Is that the sacrifice that he needs to make sure that this is the best possible time for him at Newcastle United to you can't even say resurrect, because he hasn't even had a career at Newcastle United, but just to make sure that he's actually focusing on the club that have paid big money for him and are paying his wages. Is that the sacrifice you want to see Yoane Wissa make? And positive news on Jacob Ramsey potentially involved on Sunday against Nottingham Forest. Hit like, hit subscribe, get into the comments. I've been Andrew Musgrove, and I'll see you guys very soon.